Okay, welcome back, guys and girls. I don't know what happened there. It was a bit of a technical hitch, but we are rolling for sure. So, Cecilia, let's start from the top. First of all, welcome. You know what? Seriously, you have been long awaited because I have not shut up. I've been telling people about you way before I should be. The team would kill me. Would kill me.
Oh.
I want you to tell everybody who you are and just a little bit about your journey.
Oh, my journey into working within law and family law has been via the hard route. It's got to be said. I had to get my hands very dirty and with my own family law case and my own separation and subsequent divorce from my former husband, and just quite privy and witness to just how out of hand things can get when you don't have the right support around you and the right team around you to get you through what is a difficult time for everyone. And if you're at the stage where you're discussing your very intimate family details within the court system, you feel stripped, you feel very, very vulnerable, but it's something you have to get through. So yes, and I feel old before my time on this, but and this is why it's important to share what I have learned and what I've learned not to do, more importantly, through this process as well.
So what would you say would be, going all out here, what would be the top 3 things that you've learned in your journey in family law?
Well, within family law and within this situation, this sounds totally counterintuitive. Do not take it personally. You are within a court system. You are within a legal system. You are within legislation. The person on the other side of the courtroom isn't your ex-husband. That is not the person you married. That is the person with which you have to find a common consensus about how to go forward with your family. Now, most people don't have to have the fabric of their family put before a judge, and what feels like, I don't know, dirty linen in public, or putting yourself at other people's judgment, quite literally, because of course you feel, what have I done wrong? Oh, everything that I've done wrong, I'm this sort of person, I'm that sort of person. So never take it personally, even if it's coming from your former spouse, because it's not personal. But where it is personal is about the children. The children need to be listened to. I mean, even if you are constantly listening to them, they will be feeling they need to be listened to more. So always be generous with your time on how to listen to children. And it's also getting your listening skills strong again. So not interrupting them when they're talking, even if they're talking rubbish. I mean, I know mine do, but they're allowed to. They're kids, and we're allowed to as well as adults. But there's the time and place for this, and there are soft skills to learn from that. So learn to listen again. Don't take it personally, and also everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And as thick and sticky and chunky as this middle may seem, it will eventually come to an end, because the kids will grow up. They won't be kids forever, but don't let their childhood be just this, because there's other things going on as well. So, but it's a lot to juggle with, and it's a lot to keep your head straight and try all that at the same time. And we're only human, all of us. We're only human.
I love that. I love those top tips. And I tell you what, because in your journey, you represented yourself. Now, we're not going to give details about your case, but I know. We're live, Cecilia. Okay. But you chose, didn't you, to represent yourself? Yes. And there's a lot of myth, isn't there, around people who represent themselves. So I wanted to talk about a little bit how your journey was in why you chose to represent yourself, why you chose, because you used family law assistants to help you out back in those days.
Yes.
So tell me about that journey. Tell me why you made that decision.
Well, initially, it became a financial thing, but initially it was because I was so naive about what a court was and what this situation was. I mean, again, like most people, my metrics and parameters for understanding the court was from soap operas and films, where and especially American films, because you're throwing words around like custody and subpoenas and deposition, and it's like, it's not Columbo. Although, he could have sorted a few things out for me, I must admit. But so you learn it from that. And also from my naivety in this, I still thought this would be almost like mediation, and that my former husband would be listening to me and we would be able to talk in the way that we would be able to talk through problems in the past, as you do as a married couple. But the thing is, you have to realize you're not a married couple anymore. And, again, that's all part of the threads that you've got to pull apart as part of divorce in general, but of course made more complicated by this. So when I first decided to represent myself, I could see this case going on and on for a long time. And I was already aware of the sort of bills my former husband was clocking up with this. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to match that. But what I can match this with is with time and dedication and doing an awful lot of reading. So, but that sounds like I was empowered. I wasn't. I was very broken at the time. But it was making lemonade with lemons and thinking, what do I have at hand that I can work with right now? I have time. I have the desire to get the best outcome for this. I'm not out to embarrass or punish anyone, or also try and paint myself out to be this perfect mom and this well-leveled woman. No, I'm not. I've got clay feet like everybody else, and I've messed up as much as anybody else. But it was just using what I had. And thanks to you, I mean, seriously, I mean, I know we're live saying this, but you helped me so much with finding my way forward with making that work, to be honest, Michaela. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to cry. I'm kidding. And then what was really fascinating is that you decided to take this further. So I want you to tell everyone out there, what possessed you? What possessed you to want to go and do this further?
Because it was so difficult, because there was so many layers of it. And it's also when I've had to deal with friends or friends of friends that have been in this situation and lost hope because of it, because it seemed so overwhelming. So they've ended up, I didn't know, without going into specifics, people that just lose their track about everything, and because it's painful and sinking into, I don't know, learned behaviors, drugs and alcohol. There's all sorts of habits you can pick up, even like if it was eating disorders. There's all sorts of psychological abuse and addictions that you can inflict on yourself to distract yourself from getting your head down, cracking on. And if there was one way that I could try and get that across to other people, that if you can crack on, even if you feel you're not making that great a job at it, you're cracking on. So it's like in the Finding Nemo film, when if you don't like the scenery, just keep swimming, and wait until the scenery changes. Because if you stay paralyzed, frightened, broken in one place, you're not going to move forward. But if you're inching forward in little micro steps, you will get to the end. And I just wanted to help anybody else going through this, because it's too hard, but we get there. We all get there. Every single one of us gets there.
And I know it's I want to pick up on something you mentioned, because this is something that I don't think a lot is spoken about, really. And that is, never mind the legal stuff, never mind quoting statute. On one hand, actually, the knowing what form to fill in, what to say, what not to say, how to construct a position statement, that is almost fairly simple compared to how it changes you as a person. So do you want to tell us how it changed you as a person going through that process?
I had to very quickly get used to going through reading things for detail and going through all sorts of, but again, it's keeping your processes small when you're confused, isn't it? So if when doing things like writing my own statements or writing things, is how do you write a sentence? Which sounds like, well, we all know how to say sentences, we all know how to write sentences, but when you're staring at a computer screen and you're thinking, so much depends on this, you're paralyzed, you're in the headlights again. So by taking those processes down to be small again, write a sentence that makes sense, that's got the right, vowels, right number of words in it, something makes sense. And then you're at least one step forward to doing the whole document. Is don't look at the whole document, you'll never get anywhere with it, it'll be paralyzing. But if you write a sentence or write a heading or write, and I ended up learning that in a way that I hadn't learned it, even from being at university, because that just became a mechanical process. Oh, I'm doing an essay. Whereas this made me think about detail and getting things right and not trying to sound clever. I mean, because that we all, again, because the court system is quite alien territory for a lot of us. We'll go into it thinking you've got to sound really clever and use nice big fat juicy great sounding legal words and stuff, but a judge sees this how many times a day? 20, 30 times a day. If you can say something with conviction and with honesty and transparency, that will win out over 3 or 4 pages of knowing cases from 30 years ago or knowing parts of family law, is because you're showing your authenticity on this and having the confidence to go, oh, I don't care if this does make me sound a bit simple, it's real, So yeah, that's a big takeaway that I've come away with all of this. So
I know it doesn't feel like it, Cecilia, but there was a whole life before family courts. So what did you do? I know, right?
I thought about that the other day. It's like, what did I used to do? what used to occupy my time before? It's but again, you make these processes sort of shared skills amongst your other things. Like, I mean, I know you love your music and you love being a musician and stuff, but there's some what they call it, like a crossover skill. Do you know what term I'm looking for? Don't you?
Transferable skill.
Transferable skill. That's what I was looking for. That you do take things like, as I say, the attention to detail thing, and then reapply it to maybe things you did used to do before, like loving a bit of poetry, or even watching a film, or watching how scenes changed, or just indulging on that attention to detail side of you that you might have lost since when you were at school, maybe, because that's when it matters, because you've got to do exams. But it can reopen the world up for you in that way. So that is a positive, I think, and you do forget that. You forget that part of yourself. But yeah. So
what were you doing before a family court case and then joining our team? What were you doing before then, if you can remember, like that far back?
Well, my career was, again, it was around writing, and it was around being technical, because of it was writing up computer systems and processes and stuff. But that is not to say it's had any bearing or relation to this. This is totally different. The only commonality between the two of those things is they both use words. That's it. Because if you're being a technical author or writing up documents, you're not really invested in what you're doing. You're just making it flow so other people can understand it. when you're doing your documents for family court, you're talking about your actual children, and you're trying to talk about your ex-partner without sounding bitter or trying to play them down or whatever, or get revenge or whatever we go through when we're trying to get through these things. So yes, there was a bit of that. Did a bit of stand-up comedy as well, but I've just forgotten what could be funny anymore because it's just everything that's non-comedy has suddenly become a lot funnier than anything I used to write. So, but I mean, it was a life change. It was a lifestyle. It was a total about end and time to think about things differently and how the second half of my life is going to pan out, because this has now been a life of two halves. The first half was do what we all do, head down, pay the mortgage, kids go to school, various bits and pieces, you know, hobbies. And then suddenly your world's upended and you think, what next then? What am I supposed to do, I think, is rather than what do I want to do? Which I think we should ask that question of ourselves every single day. What do I want? Not what should I want or what should happen. You know, it's what do I want? If it's a quiet life, have a quiet life. If it's to be in a rock band, I've heard because of the lockdown that all these middle-aged men are coming out with their guitars. So I'm starting to anticipate a lot of pop bands releasing albums on Zoom. I'm looking forward to that. I can't be honest with you if that's going to be good. But why not ask that question, what do I want? You know, and it's certainly something we have to do in this process with family law is like, what do I want? Not what do I want for my children or what should I want for my children? What do I want? And that's half the battle in starting this process is what do I want as the end game on this? It's and it shouldn't be revenge or to show them who's boss or to retain my dignity or what all these other things that seem like they've got weight, but they don't. It just keeps you in that small place when there's a whole world and a whole life out there. So
I agree with that, because I mean, a lot of the people that we deal with, people know generally what they don't want, but rarely do people know what they do want. And it's funny,
you get used to talking about what you want in that negative way because all you're outlining is what you don't want all the time. That's not being positive, is it? That's just remaining negative without realizing it. And we're all in that habit. I mean, I have to pull myself up every day on that one, but write down, I don't want this, I don't want that. It's like, well, if I don't want it, why am I thinking about it?
Exactly. And what do you want? Yeah. How have you, because I mean, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, a bit late now, but one of the things that you had an additional complication with you because you had an injury, quite a serious injury. You want to tell them about that? Because you were like a bloody pioneer.
You know, it was terrifying at the time. I mean, just as all this court case and all the problems with my ex-husband and still with my son happened, I had a very serious accident which almost killed me. I mean, I was meant to be in hospital for 6 months, but I managed to get out in 2. But that's only because I sort of basically ran away from hospital. And but I had a serious head injury, and I had to have my head rebuilt out of plastic. So I am like, well, I don't think RoboCop rather than the Terminator. But I do have a plastic head, which is quite funny. I mean, my son says that means you've got a crash helmet built into your head now, so you should be all right. It's like, don't work like that. So, yeah, I mean, my first hearing of family court, I had to turn up in pajamas because I wasn't meant to be out of bed at all. And the other party, I couldn't get them to agree to an adjournment. But I think in fairness, they didn't realise quite how serious my situation was, to be honest. So, yeah, this is why I had time on my hands, and because I wanted to recover from the associated neurological issues that I still have to this day. It was a way of getting me refocused and rereading, rewriting, relearning all this stuff again. So so it was from the ground up on that one. I mean, but this is because of doing the family law. That's good because I've also started, there's little bits I do about disability law and stuff like that as well. So yeah, suddenly law figured in my life, whereas it never ever before, never.
Because it's really not so much about the law, is it? And although we focus on the law when we're putting together documents and in our strategizing, sometimes that's not of much comfort really to people, is it?
No, but it's like learning a second language, isn't it? But a second language where you already know the words. So, but you have to learn it in a different way if you're going to express what it is you're trying to get across, or what wants you're trying to arrive at, or what goals you're trying to. It's learning all the words but how to do it in a different way. And it's an odd feeling, but it makes sense when you get into it. To be honest, it's because you have to drop that assumption that you know everything, because you know the words. You know words. You don't know the language of this new environment, which is the court system. So
I agree. I always say to people that this is it's almost like a game. You are not, the rules that you play with in court are not the rules that you would play with in reality. And I think once you accept that it's a game, I think that it disassociates you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it makes it.
It's being able to surrender to that, because you're not going to change legislation overnight. You're not going to have this groundbreaking case that's going to go all the way up to the House of Lords and change family law. That's not going to happen, because that's not how it happens. But when you surrender and accept, then you're in a position to get what you want. It's when you're fighting and scrapping, and it's like being punch drunk, isn't it? Just swinging and swinging and swinging. The only person that gets exhausted is you. It's not. You're not going to beat the law up, are you? You're not going to beat the court up. But what you are going to do is rob yourself of energy and rob your family of energy that you can give, because you still want to be a parent. Whether you're going through this or not, you still have to retain that gravitas of being a grown-up, or learning how to be a grown-up again. It makes us all feel like kids, doesn't it? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So so one of the things that we can expect from you is some blogs, and I know, because you're really good writing. I mean, when you put together the bio, I was like, wow, yeah. So we're expecting, so people from here will be expecting some blogs from you. You'll be joining us on the Ask Us Anything on the 30th of July. So guys, you want to book your tickets now? They're free. So get your tickets. I know. So get your tickets and join us on the 30th of July, where you're going to see even more of the beautiful Cecilia. As you can tell, she's intelligent, she's strong, she's sassy, she's determined. She is RoboCop. Cecilia Danielson.
Yeah, I really am.
So guys, thank you so much for joining us. Cecilia, as ever, it's always a pleasure. Guys, tune in, and I'll see you all very soon. And grab your tickets, 30th of July, folks.